Comparing solar proposals. I get asked all the time different questions about quotations that other installers have given, and I really appreciate that this can be a very overwhelming experience for you as an end user. I always recommend you get at least 3 quotes. Now you might be thinking, is this the right price? Are these the right products? And should I pick this installer? I'm going to be breaking down today all the things that you need to know about solar quotes for solar and battery storage so you can make an informed decision, you know what questions to ask so you can make the right decision for your home or business. Let's go. Equipment quality. Am I looking for the cheapest part to work for a couple of years, or am I actually making this decision for the next 10, 15, 20, even 30 years with solar panels? If you invest in really cheap quality stuff, you're kind of going to get what you pay for the majority of the time. But there will be a couple of areas where you might be able to save money and be savvy without compromising on your quality. So let's have a bit of a deep dive into this. One of the big things manufacturers do, because they're not capable or they don't have the infrastructure to generate their own products from the ground up, is they white label. And this happens way more than what you think. Some of the big manufacturers, I know there's one up north, for example, that does this regularly, where basically they take a cheap Chinese battery, they stick their label on the front of it, they create an API for their software, so an integration essentially that happens, and they charge you double the price. Now the reality is you're still getting that cheap quality of product at the end of it. Don't know if that's the right decision to make, to be honest with you. So one thing you want to be assessing is looking at the heritage of that individual product and trying to establish if that product's been individually white labeled. Battery storage is another thing that comes under equipment warranty very regularly. A big no-no. Do not mix the inverter brand and the battery brand. So if you've got a hybrid inverter in particular and it's of one brand name, don't mix it with another battery brand name. Other installers do this because they're trying to reduce the cost to you all the time, cost. And from experience, all that happens when it goes wrong, let's say the battery management system breaks, you report the problem under the manufacturer's warranty, the manufacturer of the battery blames the inverter blames the battery, and you end up being piggy in the middle, and your installer often shrugs their shoulders because it's a few years later and you're then saddled with the cost of replacing the battery and the inverter. So never mix inverter and battery brands. A real key question to ask your installer is why they use that brand. What you want to look when you're picking for a solar installer is someone that's been with that brand and manufacturer quite some time. Check on the website of that manufacturer that that company is even registered to install with them. You want someone who has a great deal of experience. Solar, inverters and batteries are a complex technology when you don't know how. So having an installer that's really expert in their individual products is going to be key to you at the other end. So if you have a problem, you have a little technical query, you can call them and you don't have to deal with a rigmarole of trying to research this technology yourself. You can just simply pick the phone up, have a quick call with them, and they can answer all those good questions for you. Forums and Facebook groups. Now, you'll often find on these forums and Facebook groups, take them with a pinch of salt because you'll get some very opinionated people and often their opinion isn't correct. But they're a really good measure for what generally people are saying about these products. If you're going onto a forum about a particular product and absolutely everybody is slating it, then you'll get a gut feeling around it. If you've got other people that are talking passionately about it, about all these wonderful things they're doing with it, like you might not want to get involved with APIs, but the fact that you can get involved if you want to get involved with this technology is always a really good thing, because one thing we need to be doing is having a product that's ready for the future, and you want a product that other people are speaking highly of. So it's good just to give you a bit of a measure in terms of the actual product itself. Equipment quality. I think we can tick that one off. The next one I want to talk about is tech, so technology that's built into these inverter and tariffs. So many people think that an inverter and battery is simply there to get the energy that's generated up on a roof, solar panels or a wind turbine, and store it in the battery. There is bucket loads more technology built into these batteries. One of the first bits of technology that's built into these batteries, and this works if you don't have solar panels as well, if you have an electric car, often you'll have a cheap EV tariff. you can charge it up at night. If you have a heat pump and you have 3 short windows where it's really cheap during the day for energy, you can often reduce your energy bill in the winter by 2/3 in your ability to charge it up cheap within these windows. But that requires internal memory storage within the inverter, and loads of people just don't realise the capabilities that are harnessed within these inverters. Something else you want to make sure is that they're compatible with smart tariffs. There is Octopus Intelligent Flux, for example. There is an Agile tariff. And you might be thinking, what the blinking heck is this man on about here? Well, essentially, you with your inverter are able to access the cheapest prices on the grid. Another critical thing for the winter is a thing called the Demand Flexibility Service. You might be again thinking, DFS, isn't that a sofa company? No. This is something completely different. This is integrated now within most modern inverters, and I know it's coming soon for the Tesla Powerwall 3. What this basically does is looks, as I mentioned ago, at the most expensive price on the grid and goes, wait a second, we can charge cheap during the day, but when it's expensive, we can forcibly export this energy out to the grid. And what's more, because you own the battery, you can skim a profit, and essentially it takes a chunk off the top and hands you a little bit of dosh. Now, this isn't going to be a life-changing amount of money. This is likely to be takeaway money that we're talking about in terms of that exchange. But what's important is the fact that this can export it and can do it all intelligently. And essentially, you're using your battery, so when the grid's expensive, you're complementing the grid, and when it's cheap, you're buying it in. That's where technology is going within these systems, just the same as it's done with your smartphone. Don't go buying a dumb inverter. Now, I appreciate tariffs is your brain's working at 1,000,000 miles an hour now. Now, what I have done is an in-depth video on tariffs. I'll stick a link below so that you can have a nice watch of that. And if you want to know more and be able to select the right tariff for you, whether you've got an EV, a heat pump, or just a solar and battery storage system, I give a complete breakdown of everything that you need to know. One of the other integrations we need to consider with an inverter and battery is the integration with your existing technology or potential future technology you may well be considering investing into. So that might be EV car charging. Now think of it this way, you're charging your EV and your battery has no intelligence at all. Essentially, it could be trying to meet the demand of your electric car. So when you wake up in the morning, it doesn't have anything stored because it's not intelligent enough to work out that the car was charging. Or equally, you might have a hot water diverter and your battery thinks that there's excess generation, is trying to store it, whilst your hot water diverter's trying to use it as well. And for those people that aren't familiar with hot water diverters, essentially you can get solar energy, and if there's excess energy after the battery stored it, you can use it to heat your hot water tank. Another one is heat pumps. You just want to make sure that the inverter size and the technology is capable enough to be able to meet the demand of your heat pump. Tech, to labour the point, it's really important. When you're getting your prices, you want to make sure it can access all of these things or the proportion that you need for you. So make sure you're asking the right questions. App demos. Now, this is something I get asked for all the time and I don't really think much of. I would always demonstrate the mobile phone application that's going to be installed at your property. Any good installer should know that app that's going with your inverter like the back of their hands. Most of the time, like me, I know if you look, we've got a Tesla Powerwall next to us here. The Tesla system I can demonstrate for you straight away, or a Give Energy system that I have at my home. I can just simply show you these systems. So if you're thinking of having an inverter and battery, just get your installer to demonstrate how it works and how it operates. Ask them a few questions about integrations, and very quickly you're going to get that good gut feeling of whether this is the right app for you or not. So, tech and tariffs, tick, and I apologise for my terrible handwriting in advance. Let's go on to warranties. Now, there are two aspects to warranties. There's an insurance-backed workmanship warranty. I'm just going to park that for a second. And then you have manufacturer's warranties that sit separate. It's really important that you don't confuse these two because they both very much offer different things. So let's start at the top of your roof first and work down, starting with the solar panels. Personally, I would only accept a 25-year warranty on manufacturer's warranty and a 30-year warranty on performance. If it's any less than that, shove it in the bin would be my suggestion. Just make sure with your actual warranty what it covers most of the time, and this is where you might need your insurance back workmanship warranty that I'm coming on to in a second, they will only cover the cost of a module. So if that module fails, it's probably only cover about £100, that warranty. And you've got to consider things like the scaffolding and the labour to replace those products. So choose wisely when it comes to the quality of solar panels. The next thing is the railing system. Again, typically speaking, 10-year warranty plus. Most of the warranties are all around aesthetics. Railing systems, as long as they're installed properly and are appropriate for the roof, from my experience, very rarely fail. Inverter and battery. This is the brains of your operation. Now, there are a couple of different types of inverter you might be looking at. There are microinverters and optimizers. The same warranty principles from a manufacturer's perspective apply as they did with the panels, often with a microinverter and optimizer. So if an optimizer or microinverter fails, you could well be forking out the cost of scaffolding plus the people to do it, and they may well only cover the part. Now, the problem is when a part fails, and if it fails in 10, 15 years time, and this just needs to be an air of caution when you're asking for things like microinverters that seem really fancy and great. If that product as an individual product fails in 15 years time, they might not still be manufacturing that product. They might give you £100 in your hand, but then you're left with replacing 10 microinverters. So my suggestion is, where possible, unless there's specific requirements around shading, which your engineer would always discuss with you, try and keep inverting on the ground floor. Now let's break it down now in terms of inverter and battery. I believe any good inverter and battery manufacturer should have at least a 10-year manufacturer's warranty, and this is a manufacturer's warranty worth its salt. You want unlimited cycles, really. Essentially, every time a battery charges and discharges, over a period of time, that battery will naturally degrade. You want that battery warranted for at least 10 years and ideally unlimited cycles. Think of that in your mind a little bit like a car having a 10-year unlimited mileage warranty. You're really kind of covering off and capping off your bases. You'll find with cheaper battery manufacturers that they'll have a cycle limitation, 3, 4, 5,000 cycles. That's indicating the battery chemistry within your battery is often very cheap, subpar, and is not likely to be standing the test of time. Don't just pick a battery because it's cheap in the here and now. Really do focus on what this is going to happen for the next 15, 20, 25 years and how that truly looks. A good quality battery will last about 10,000 cycles, which is in between 16 and 20 years. And if you think in 20 years time, I would say the prices will be commoditized by then. You're expecting a lower price and you'd be probably okay with replacing it because it's paid for itself 3, 4 times over. Another aspect of warranties is the insurance-backed workmanship warranty. So as I mentioned earlier, solar panels only cover the cost of the module unit. They're not going to cover your scaffolding. This is where you need to be negotiating with your installer for a longer insurance-backed workmanship warranty. This basically hooks your installer in to be able to maintain this system for a lengthened period of time after it's been installed. So if you had a leak on the roof after year 4, it would be either the installer that's coming back to install it. If they're no longer in business, then there's an insurance policy to cover their labour, the parts, the scaffolding, the work, so that that problem for you gets completely sorted. Now, insurance-backed workmanship warranties vary anywhere from 2 up to 10 years. Some installers won't offer you a 10-year one because it depends on their insurance provider, but it's very common to have a 2 or a 5-year policy. I'd be trying to negotiate to the 5 if I were you. So I think we've ticked off warranty and insurance-backed guarantees. The next one I want to talk to you about is the appropriate accreditations needed for solar installations. Just a couple of days ago, we had our MCS audit. The auditor came in and said there are so many people, and they call them criers, that call in having spent tens of thousands of pounds on solar systems that simply call in crying because their installer simply wasn't accredited. So do me a huge favour and take the time not just to believe the words that you're being told by your installer, but when you've shortlisted to maybe 1 or 2 installers, if you've had your 3 quotes, the last 1 or 2, do your due diligence. It's well worth it. You're thinking of spending thousands of pounds. So the things you need to do your due diligence are, make sure that company you're instructing are registered with the MCS. That stands for Microgeneration Certification Scheme. Now, there are different accreditations for MCS installers. You can have one for solar and there's a separate one for battery. If you're having a battery, make sure they're registered for battery. They're solar, make sure they're for solar. If they're doing both, make sure they're registered for both. And there's nothing wrong with having a PIC. So we're registered with the NICEIC RECC as an approved contractor and domestic installer. You can also be registered with NAPIT. Both are perfectly acceptable. The NICEIC RECC is a bit of a bigger organisation. They're well known a bit more in the public sector. And that's really the main difference. Their subscription fees are a little bit more. They provide a little bit better tech support for the individual installers. But either one of those, I don't want to kind of make it out as if one's really superior to the other. They're both perfectly acceptable to install with somebody or to get installed by somebody who's either NAPIT or NICEIC RECC approved. To make sure that you're being sold to by someone who isn't going to pressure sell and understands the ethical way to sell, there is another accreditation that you should expect from your installer. And that's a thing called either the RECC or the HIES. Again, both are perfectly acceptable. One charges per installation and one charges like a monthly subscription fee to the installer. Basically, these organisations are in place to make sure that solar panels and battery storage are being sold in a very ethical, fair way. These set out some very clear and understood standards behind the installer so you don't feel pressure sold to. Make sure they are registered. Those are the essential ones, but they must be. There are a couple of others that I would ask you to have a look at. If you're choosing a particular brand of inverter or battery, make sure your installer is registered with them as an installer. For example, we're registered with Give Energy and they have different tiers of installer quality. They have an entry level, they have an intermediate, and like us, a platinum installer quality. That's going to give you a really good idea of how many of those inverters or batteries that actual installer has installed associated with that brand. So just check that one off. Another great one that we're registered with is Which Trusted Trader. Now, Which do a series of extra due diligence checks. The MCS, which is the first one I mentioned, will check insurance details, qualifications, but Which go that little bit further. They check all of the terms and conditions that the individual person's putting forward. They're making sure things like your money is protected, like we do, with insurance-backed deposit protection schemes, which basically means as the money comes in, that installer has the obligation to insure and ring-fence that money for you. Just check out Which Trusted Traders for your local installer if you are having a think of, because they're also just at that higher bar, just of that higher standard, and it may only be a few £100 more, and you might just prevent you from regretting it. Accreditations, we'll tick that off. Now let's have a look at reviews and references, and I think this is another important thing to do. So now you filter it down, you make sure they're accredited. Reviews can be fudged, and that's the truth. Particularly on certain platforms. They're incredibly hard to fudge on something like Which Trusted Traders because they ask them to upload proof of payment. Google's also harder because they've got to have individual registered accounts. Trustpilot is also a really good review rated platform. Again, they're doing their due diligence checks. They're not just allowing spam reviews on there. They have to physically go on and confirm their email. They're making sure of these things. But really assess the reviews that are out there. Look and search things like Facebook for any bad comments or write-ups on their local installers group is always a good one to have a look at. Things like their own community groups that are local as well, because let's face it, bad news travels rather quickly. And I believe a good installer always comes from their ability to put things right when it goes wrong. Have we had problems? Yeah, of course we have as installers. Of course we get problems. Of course we get training issues with members of staff. Of course, from time to time, we may well pick the wrong item to go with something, or we'll spec something ever so incorrectly wrong. But when a customer says something about it, you're really hung, drawn and quartered on your ability to be able to put things right when it goes wrong. And that's where I believe installers get the best quality of reviews. So you want to have a look at the genuineness of these reviews of, yeah, you know what? They did stuff it up, but I tell you what, they were excellent when I said something about it, and they put that gutter right. They organised that broken tile that just happened to happen. A lot of these are slips and errors, but it's really important to see that you can see the grit that goes behind the reviews. So make sure they don't just say the word great. Make sure they're really in-depth discussing the people that are in the business that the reviews are all about. When you're really getting towards the end of your assessment, ask for a personal reference. Get speaking with a customer that's had it installed. Go round and have a look. Loads of installers, like if you asked us, can you come around and have a look? I'd be like, yeah, no problem. And most customers are quite happy for one or two other customers to come round and have a quick look at how it's installed, what it looks like, speak about the installation process. I think the majority of good installers out there that are doing it all for the right reasons would be more than happy to provide a personal reference. If you're picking the wrong company, that's when you know the excuse and chaff will start to arrive. Just ask for those personal recommendations in addition. Reviews and references. And we can tick that one off. Aftercare. When the installation's finished, so many people just focus on the product and what they're getting and how much it generates that they just simply fail to ask the installer, hey, if it goes wrong, who do I speak to? Do you have an office team? How would you process this in the event that it went wrong? Do you offer any support in terms of tariffs or aftercare? What does that support look like? You want an installer that's really engaged and wants to be able to give you this information and explain all these things to you, so you get all these nuggets away from it, so you get maximum return on investment. Ask about aftercare and ask other customers that have dealt with that installer about how good they were at their aftercare too. Aftercare, tick. I'm going to go on to my last, final and most important question. Are they just a sales company? There are so many videos on social media and other adverts that are out there saying you can get free solar panels, prices and packages from this amount that seems lower and too good to be true. Normally, there's no smoke without fire. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. That's the reality that sits behind it. You get a lot of aggregate companies that are out there, and you'll pick this up in your due diligence if you follow my points. But what you'll find is there'll be a marketing company that's there to get leads for installers. So what they do is market, have a really flashy website, hook you in any way they possibly can do, sell you on the package, and then all they do is drop you into installer and take a commission off the back of your installation. They have no interest in your aftercare, they have no interest in you, they have no interest in the quality of their products, they have no interest in anything. They're just simply a sales outfit that are there to make a commission off your back. Just take the time to make sure they're not a sales company. Check them, vet them, follow this process, make sure the equipment quality's there, make sure you're looking at the tech and tariffs, check they've got a warranty, check their insurance back guarantee, check that that sales company or that company that you want aren't just a sales company, that they're an installation company, that they're actually accredited for the work that they do. Check the reviews and references, check what they're doing in the aftercare, and then you're ready to install solar. On the subject of sales companies, I want to talk about group buying schemes, and something I was a little bit offended of personally is there's councils hooking onto this as well. It is a race to the bottom. They fit often the worst possible quality equipment going, they use the cheapest possible installers, race to the bottom on quality, and ultimately it ends up in tears. As long as you follow my process of vetting them out, I'm sure you will vet them out anyway, but just be wary of a group buying scheme. You're much better picking someone who's local, that's well established, that really cares and is deeply passionate about their trade and craft, that works with great quality products, that's right for you. So one thing I really want you to look at, and I can't labour this enough, is are they a sales company? And I'm going to underline that and put that with a big exclamation mark. Avoid them like the plague. Thank you very much, and I hope you do install solar and battery storage.